When you get a new watch, you are no doubt filled to the brim with excitement for all the things you can do with it. But what about the stuff you shouldn't? I concocted a list of 10 no-nos that you must never do with your watch. The last one's a game changer. Let's be completely honest. One of the best things about getting a shiny new watch is showing it all off to your friends. Even the ones that don't care. Especially the ones that don't care. You've got a shiny new toy, you're buzzing and you want other people to buzz along with you. That's great and all, but you need to be careful not to get too overexcited and show it to everyone you meet. It's a dodgy world out there, and some of the people you might run into could have more for you in mind than just telling you you're boring. A fancy watch is an easy target for those less than savoury types looking to make a quick buck at your expense. And sure, I bet you think you know exactly what you're doing. See anyone who looks vaguely suspicious and your sleeve will be deployed quicker than the US Air Force on a Chinese balloon. But there's a problem here, because who you think looks suspicious and who you should be suspicious of may well probably be entirely different people. You're concerned about the shaven-headed, face-tattooed guy with the scar across his eye when he's just minding his own business trying to get a drink. A lot of the watch robberies that happen these days happen within touching distance of the owner's front door. They went out for the night, had a lovely evening, and get bopped over the head as they're reaching for their keys by some unfriendly neighbourhood scoundrel looking to relieve them of their time. How do these people know? It's all in the prep. An Uber driver might spot it and send your address ahead. The waiter seating tables. The friendly ladies you chatted to at the bar. Once they've seen what you've got and they see that you're leaving, it's like shooting fish in a barrel. So watch out. Be wary. You don't need to go watchless every time you step out the front door, but just be careful. Speaking of friendly ladies, it can't help but be noticed that most people who like watches tend to be guys. We could sit around all night debating the whys and wherefores of such a predicament, but for now we'll simply stick with the sentiment that this is the status quo. Remember that, because we'll come back to it very soon. Because a watch is so much more than just a timekeeper, we as watch buyers tend to project onto it. It represents our successes, our achievements, our efforts, and our struggles. It's the A grade we never got in school, and the positive affirmation we never received from our fathers. We put a lot of emotional burden on these little things, and to be honest, if they were sentient, this would all probably be some kind of emotional abuse. Thankfully, watches know to keep their mouths shut, and so they go on diligently reminding us that we aren't failures, and that we can do it, and that John over in accounts is an idiot who doesn't know what he's talking about anyway. And so long as that bond stays between a man and his watch, it's all good. Okay, so you can share with a dog, but that's it. Back to the ladies. You might think that because you've placed the weight of your personal insecurities on the watch to reflect back to you that you are indeed a successful addition to the human race, that this same image reflects outwards to someone you're trying to impress. Unfortunately, it doesn't. Not even close. It's the very definition of cringe. You may think she's showing an interest, that she's into watches too, but the statistical likelihood is low. She's probably being nice. Here's the golden rule. Wait to be asked, and be cool about it when she does. And definitely don't talk at her for the next 3 hours about balance springs. Have you ever had that sickly feeling in the back of your throat when you realise you've made a big mistake? That churn in the pit of your stomach that wishes real life had save games too. There's no avoiding these colossal missteps, and all we can hope to do is have as few of them as we can. Buying a really expensive watch that it turns out you just don't like is one of those moments. When you realise that it's a bit too big or not quite you, or even just a bit too expensive to be comfortable wearing. You got all excited about it, locked the little voice that usually talks sense to you in the basement of your brain, and went wild with the credit card. The worst bit is when you let that little guy back out and he says,
"You knew this was going to happen. You saw the signs and you ignored them anyway. Well, now look at this fine mess you've got us into."
And he's got a point. You should have listened. But it's too late for all that. There's a thing called the gambler's fallacy. It's a behavioural trap a lot of people fall into when they've invested in something, because the opportunity to recover loss is more tempting than the acceptance of it, even if it could, and likely will, lead to more loss. Quite simply, admitting defeat is harder than trying to find the bathroom light switch in the middle of the night. But if you really don't like the watch, just don't keep it. Don't let it hang over you as the time you made a dumb decision. Take the hit, get rid of it, and move on. You'd be surprised how much of a relief it is once all's said and done. Then, instead of looking backwards like a getaway driver down a dead end, you can look forwards to a brighter possibility. By which I mean not making the same stupid mistake again. It's the single greatest invention, and also the worst. No, not the air fryer. I'm talking about the internet. It's like millions of voices suddenly got the opportunity to show how much vodka their mothers drank when they were pregnant. It's the greatest social experiment to ever happen, and on the one side there are people sharing the secrets of the universe and creating a greater resource for free knowledge than we've ever seen before. And on the other, there's Baby Shark do-do-do-do-do. If you thought alcohol brought out the worst in people, you haven't met the internet. Imagine having the ability to tell some poor kid on the other side of the world how much vodka their mother drank when they were pregnant, completely anonymously and without recourse. With that kind of power, you could literally make anything up, and probably find enough people who believed you to make it onto Fox News. So when it comes to sharing your watches online, take heed. Think and double think. Screen your post for douchebaggery. Make sure you aren't just posting for internet clout. For the uninitiated, internet clout is a form of currency that literally has no value. They're like NFTs, but instead of receiving a crappy picture, you're making it. And the difference between a nice picture of your watch and a post of your watch for internet clout can be subtle. So let me give you a few tips to help make sure you avoid that trap. Number 1. While you're wearing the watch, are you dancing at all? If yes, straight to internet jail. Number 2. Are you finding the watch on the street? Or perhaps locked inside concrete where you definitely didn't just put it there yourself? If yes, jail. Number 3. Is it part of a collection featuring exclusively AP, Patek and Richard Mille? And are you keeping them all in a Pelican case like you think you're some kind of watch dealer for the Navy SEALs? If yes, they'll throw away the key. Every now and then, like a complete idiot, I Google my name. Thankfully for me, it's a very common name, and usually there's too much of all that to be bothered finding anything that actually relates to me personally. But every once in a while, I stick at it long enough to find something. I tell myself it's so I can learn how to be better at what I do, but really I'm looking for nice things people have said about me, and it's either that or a whole tub of Ben & Jerry's. And I'm pleased to report that a lot of people say some really, really nice things. It's incredibly rewarding and fulfilling to know that something I've done has had a positive effect on people around the world who I've never even met, and reading it refills my soul anew to carry on with fresh motivation. Or at least it would if that's how human brains actually worked. Because whilst many comments are very positive, some of them are less so. Not many, but more than 0. And here's how that works. I see all the positive comments, assume it's some sort of conspiracy by Teddy Baldassar to make me overconfident and sloppy, and I completely ignore them. All lies. And then there's that one guy who can barely spell, who's got an anime girl as his icon, telling me my videos suck, and the sentiment may as well have been brought down from a mountain etched into stone by Moses himself. Why is this relevant to you in any way? Because I bet you've done the same thing about a watch. You've scoured the internet for all the info that, let's face it, affirmed a decision you'd already made. Then you went out and bought it, and now you're back online double checking. Don't do that. You've gone from the risk-free high of online window shopping to the dark and tumultuous exercise of looking for the approval of strangers on the internet. You'll read the same threads, browse the same articles, although now it's like that bit in a Disney film where the storms are blowing and all the trees cast scary shadows. Criticism lands with more weight and negativity delivers a stronger blow, all because now you've got skin in the game. Just don't. Front load the research, buy what you like, and don't outsource your enjoyment. When I was much younger, about 10 years ago, I did something stupid. I bought an expensive car I could barely afford. In some senses, it was the greatest thing ever because I was living a literal dream I'd had since I was a kid. But in other senses, I wanted to vomit every time I thought about it because of the crippling debt that it had dragged along with it, like some uncut afterbirth with a $sign on it. I would literally sweat over this debt. In my logical mind, I told myself that if the car went wrong, I would just get the bus, or if I lost my job, I would be able to sell it quickly without having to put any cash into it. But it was no use. There's just no point making your yourself sick with worry over something that's not a necessity but simply nice to have. Because I'll tell you, if you're sick with worry over it, it's not very nice to have anyway. As it happens, I drove that car gently into someone else's car, not on purpose, obviously. And that sort of fixed the problem for me, because even 5 miles an hour can cause $50,000 worth of damage apparently, and once it was gone, it was like someone let the air out of my head and I could feel normal again. There are a lot of fantastic watches out there that if you just pushed a bit harder for, filled up that credit card a little more for, took the store credit for, you could reach. You're wearing a Tudor, but you could stretch to Rolex, or perhaps even Patek Philippe. And the beans on toast for breakfast, lunch and dinner would be worth it. Yeah, it's not. And it feels kind of dumb when you can't go out with friends or take a few days abroad on holiday because you spent it all and more on a watch. That's not to say you can't use finance at all for a watch. Some retailers offer 0%, which means you can invest the money you have instead, or just keep it safe if you need it. Just don't leverage it to the max. By far and away the question I get asked the most after "how are you so handsome and so clever" is which watch should I get that's the best investment? Now, first and foremost, me offering financial advice without owning a single piece of paper written in Latin feels to me like a lawsuit waiting to happen. I've got as much chance of making you King of Sweden as I do money on a watch. What I do understand is buying a watch that isn't going to disembowel itself within 5 minutes of being on your wrist. As much as we sing and dance in the store thinking that this watch is really it forever for reals this time, there are more factors preventing that from happening than there are ones to the contrary. Aside from the obvious reality that you'll likely get bored of it at some point, and to try something new you'll need to liquidate it, there's also the unknowns, the emergencies that may require selling some stuff to free up some cash. Not even the most conservative Redditor armchair accountants are immune to all of the white goods going pop at once, alongside the dog ending up at the vet's and the car needing a service bigger than St. Paul's. So yeah, it's sensible to buy with one eye on the future, but buying to make money, I mean, it's a watch, it's not 1980s stock in Apple. I suppose I could, with a degree of confidence, steer someone in the direction of a watch that will not lose too much over the course of 10 years, and maybe even actually make a little. But I'm guessing that when someone asks about investments, they're looking for something A, substantial, and B, short term. My answer to them is, you'll probably have better luck on the horses. Those watchmakers, they put so much effort into making watches look pretty. With all the hand polishing and brushing these cases get, there's more love and attention given to them than my entire childhood. And unlike the dial, and if there's a see-through caseback, the movement is all just open to the elements to be ground up into dust. They say the first ding is always the hardest. It's the one that takes a fine creation and makes it a little bit worse, and it's all your fault. This is why you weren't allowed nice things, because you can't look after them. This is why the hamster died, because you didn't clean out its cage like you were supposed to. Look what you did. Except none of that is true at all. We can't keep things immaculate. It's a chaotic world filled with bluff corners and hard edges, and the watch is going to take some knocks. Sure, don't hack through your day swinging it around like a machete in the rainforest, but don't get so hung up on babying it either, or you'll end up like Napoleon, with your arm tucked in your jacket and a vicious stomach ulcer to boot. They don't make these watches from balsa wood and jam, they make them from steel and gold and titanium. They use those metals in spaceships that go into space, so I'm pretty sure a watch can stand a few rounds with a working day at the office. But chiefly, worrying about keeping it scratch-free is not spending time enjoying it. The watch just becomes a burden instead, and it may just be a sign that you've bought something a bit too expensive to be comfortable with. In that case, it's time to switch it out to something you don't mind taking a few chunks out of. There's an expression that sits alongside such fictional works as the achievements of Kim Kardashian and Harry Potter, and it goes something like, "This is the one." In the dizzying heights of the moment, in those first few seconds of the honeymoon period, you convince yourself that this watch is the watch to end all watches. The true watch, the one watch. You're precious. Don't be ridiculous. This watch has as much chance of preventing you from wanting another as putting the lid back on the Pringles. You know those mothers who say, "Never again," after every child? That's what you sound like, except you bought a watch. And you will buy another. Because it's just a watch, and not the hole-shaped piece of heart it feels like for those first fantastic few minutes under the sparkly lights and champagne of the local jewelers. You are allowed to buy another watch, you know. You're not committing to the purchase until death do you part. You didn't sign up to adopt it into your family and to love it forever. And whilst we don't know for sure that there isn't some mycelium-like network of communication between watches that feeds all the stories of rejection and pain from one to the next, chances are there probably isn't. It's fine to buy a watch and enjoy it for a bit, especially more so at the beginning, and maybe you will keep it forever, and maybe it really will be all the watch you ever need, but committing to that so early on really isn't necessary. We save those kinds of brash decisions for other humans. Here's something I want to reiterate in summary. It's just a watch. It's not a badge or a medal. It's not a sexual magnet. It's not a social point scored or a wrist-worn pension pot. It's a watch. It tells the time, hopefully, and looks neat doing it. There are many different types, and they appeal to many different types of people, for many different types of reasons, if at all. And that's it. It doesn't give you superpowers. It won't fill an empty void, and it won't fix what's broken. It's not going to change your life. What it can do is connect you with others, help you form friendships that last a lifetime. It can bring you together with people who'll make you laugh, or even cry, who'll be there with you when times are good and when they're tough. Watches can't make you better as a person, but they can help you see what you need to improve. They can't make other people's lives better, but they can connect you with people who could really do with a hand. So, maybe I was wrong to say a watch can't change your life. With a little help, a little effort, perhaps it can. And perhaps with it, you can help change other people's lives too, if even just a little. Thanks for watching. What's your advice for things you should never do with a watch? Why not share in the comments below? Please also like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and why not do something today that makes someone else smile? Goodbye. Still here? Watch this video next.